Most men think cheating or money problems are the biggest relationship killers. But here's the shocking truth. It's not. What destroys more relationships than anything else is a silent pattern. Men don't even see until it's too late. Have you ever wondered why she seems less attracted, even though you're doing everything right? Why the more you try to please her, the colder she gets? Why every decision feels like walking on eggshells, as if you're asking for permission to live your own life? This is the hidden trap almost every man falls into. It doesn't start with fights or drama. It starts with small choices that look harmless. You skip a night out with friends. You cancel your gym session. You let her decide every dinner, every weekend, every plan. Each one feels thoughtful, even loving. But together, they form one of the deadliest dating mistakes men make, surrendering their leadership. And here's the painful reality. Women don't lose respect because you aren't nice enough. They lose respect because you traded your confidence, your decisiveness, your alpha male energy for her approval. The very thing you thought would keep her attracted is what makes her pull away. This video will expose the compliance spiral, the invisible dynamic that kills more modern relationships than cheating, money, or incompatibility combined. And more importantly, I'll show you how to break free before it's too late. So before we dive in, hit subscribe and drop a comment below. What's the biggest struggle you're facing in your relationship right now? Let's build a brotherhood of men who stop living for approval and start living with authenticity. All right, let's begin. He gets a text. We're hitting the bar tonight. Come through. 2 years ago, his answer would have been instant. I'm in. No hesitation, no second thoughts. But now, he stares at the screen. His friends are waiting, but instead of replying yes, he mutters the words that have quietly defined his life. Let me check with her. Sound familiar? Because this is where the compliance spiral begins. And let's be clear, it doesn't start with drama. It doesn't start with a screaming fight. It starts with small, harmless choices. Skipping a guy's night, letting her decide dinner, canceling the gym for quality time. Each decision feels thoughtful. Each one feels like you're being a good partner. But stacked together, they form the compliance spiral, a loop that pulls you deeper into hesitation and further away from your authentic self. Here's a question for you. When was the last time you made a decision without saying, "Is this okay?" Think about that. If you can't remember, chances are you're already inside the spiral. The compliance spiral works like water on stone. One drop does nothing. 100 drops still look harmless. But years of dripping? The stone is carved. Same with your choices. One concession means nothing. But when compromise becomes your identity, you're no longer a man in love. You're a man in submission. And you know what's worse? Most men don't even see it happening. They say, "I'm just being nice. I'm just keeping the peace." This is what good partners do. Wrong. That's exactly what fuels the spiral. Because here's the paradox. The more you sacrifice yourself to keep her comfortable, the less comfortable both of you actually become. She doesn't feel safe with a man who can't decide. She doesn't respect a man who avoids conflict. And she definitely doesn't feel attracted to a man who lives in the passenger seat of his own life. That's why the compliance spiral is one of the deadliest dating mistakes men make. Pause here for a second. If this is already hitting close to home, make sure you're subscribed. You don't want to miss the next part of this breakdown, because we're going to dig into why this spiral forms in the first place. Back to it. Think of attraction like fire. At first it burns bright, but every time you defer, every time you avoid, every time you trade authenticity for peace, You pour a little water on that flame. You don't notice it at first. But eventually, the fire's out. And when the fire goes out, so does the respect. So does the desire. This is why women drift. This is why women lose respect. Not because you're unkind, but because you stopped being decisive. Remember, she didn't fall for a man who asked permission. She fell for the guy who created experiences, who set direction, who carried himself with certainty. That confidence, that alpha male energy, is what built the emotional attraction in the first place. But the compliance spiral steals it piece by piece. First, it's dinner. Then it's weekends. Then it's your hobbies. Until one day, you wake up in a life that isn't even yours. And here's the devastating truth. The compliance spiral destroys more modern relationships than cheating, money, or even incompatibility combined. From the outside, your relationship looks fine. Friends might even call it perfect. But inside, it feels hollow. She resents carrying the wheel. You resent losing yourself. And together, you spiral into a toxic relationship that feels less like romance and more like management. I'll say it again. This isn't just about love. It's about power. It's about polarity. It's about the invisible dynamic that decides whether your relationship thrives or quietly collapses. And if you're thinking, damn, this might be me, stay locked in. Because in the next part, I'm breaking down the exact psychology behind the compliance spiral, why good men fall into it, why smart women resent it, and why ignoring it guarantees failure. He's at dinner with his girlfriend when she says, "Hey, can we skip your friend's barbecue this weekend? My cousin's in town." He feels the conflict instantly. He wants to go. He already promised his friends. But instead of speaking up, he swallows his words and replies, "Sure, no problem." That moment right there is the fear loop inside the compliance spiral. It doesn't look dramatic. It looks polite, considerate, mature. But underneath, it's fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of conflict. Fear that one no will unravel everything. And fear is powerful. It rewires the way you live. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "What will keep her happy?" This is loss aversion at work. Psychologists have shown for decades that people fear losing something they already have more than they value, gaining something new. In relationships, this means men abandon their authenticity, not because they don't care, but because they care too much. They choose safety over truth. That's the fear loop inside the compliance spiral. Every time you defer to avoid conflict, you think you're protecting the relationship. But in reality, you're teaching her that your boundaries can be bent. And the more you bend, the less she respects you. Respect doesn't die in a single fight. It dies in silence. I worked with a client named James, who lived in this exact loop. James was a successful guy, sharp, ambitious, confident at work. But in his relationship, he constantly deferred. He skipped networking events to avoid upsetting her. He changed his gym schedule because she wanted more time together. He even turned down a promotion that required travel, telling himself it was for the relationship. But the truth? He was terrified of rocking the boat. Within 2 years, she had lost all attraction, not because he wasn't giving enough, but because the fear loop inside the compliance spiral made him a man she couldn't respect. Think of it like a chess game. At the beginning, you play bold. You move with confidence. That's what makes the game exciting. But once you get attached to protecting your queen, your whole game changes. Every move becomes defensive. Every choice is about survival, not victory. And that's exactly when you lose. The same thing happens in relationships. When you live in the fear loop, you stop playing to win. You stop leading. You start managing. And no woman feels attraction for a man who manages instead of leads. This is one of the most common dating mistakes men make. They confuse endless flexibility with love. They think never saying no makes them stronger. But strength without boundaries isn't strength. It's submission. And submission is the death of attraction. From the outside, this looks perfect. No fights, no drama. Friends might even say, "You guys never argue. You're such a great couple." But behind closed doors, the truth is different. He feels suffocated. She feels burdened. And the relationship drifts quietly toward collapse. That's what makes the compliance spiral so deadly. It looks healthy until it's already too late. So let me ask you, when was the last time you made a choice simply because it was yours? When was the last time you said no without guilt? If you can't remember, the spiral already has you. And here's the cruel twist. Once the fear loop inside the compliance spiral locks in, even your best intentions backfire. Flowers, gifts, more time together. They don't rebuild attraction. They make you look weaker because they signal that her approval matters more than your authenticity. And no woman truly wants to follow a man who betrays himself just to keep her happy. This is why so many modern relationships fail, not because men don't try, but because they try the wrong way. They give more of what kills attraction instead of protecting the one thing that keeps it alive: their authenticity. That's the fear loop inside the compliance spiral. It's subtle, it's silent, and it's devastating. And in the next part, we'll go even deeper into the most dangerous stage of all, the overinvestment trap. That's where attraction doesn't just fade, it collapses. And if you don't know how to spot it, you'll end up destroying the very bond you're desperate to protect. He's standing in a jewelry store, staring at a necklace he can barely afford. His girlfriend hasn't asked for it. She hasn't even hinted. But deep down, he feels her slipping away, less responsive, less affectionate, less present. So his brain whispers, if I just give her more, she'll come back. That's the overinvestment trap inside the compliance spiral. It's a dangerous mindset. At the start, attraction was natural. His alpha male energy, his confidence, demand decisiveness and authenticity created emotional attraction she couldn't resist. But once fear took over, he stopped leading and started over-delivering. Here's the paradox. The harder he tries to keep her with gift, time, and effort, the faster she pulls away. Because every gesture made out of fear signals one thing: your approval matters more than my integrity. And no woman respects a man who trades authenticity for approval. Attraction doesn't respond to gifts. It responds to leadership. This is one of the most destructive dating mistakes men make. They confuse overinvestment with love. But women don't lose respect because a man doesn't give enough. They lose respect when he gives for the wrong reasons. I once worked with a guy I'll call Mike. Mike was successful, confident, and magnetic when he first met his girlfriend. But after a year, he found himself constantly bending over backwards. He canceled trips with friends, stopped pursuing hobbies, and showered her with expensive gifts whenever he felt her drifting. He thought more investment meant more security. Instead, she lost attraction. Why? Because the overinvestment trap inside the compliance spiral turned him from a leader into a provider of comfort. That wasn't the man she fell for. Psychology explains this clearly. Humans are wired for loss aversion. The fear of losing something valuable outweighs the desire to gain more. In relationships, This fear pushes men into overinvestment. They try to buy back love through effort instead of presence. But love can't be purchased. Respect can't be negotiated. Attraction can't be forced. Think of it like finance. A smart investor knows when to pull back, when to diversify, when to let the market breathe. But a desperate investor? He throws more money into a sinking stock, hoping it will rebound. That doesn't save him. It ruins him. The overinvestment trap inside the compliance spiral works the same way, and it doesn't stop there. Imagine a company losing customers. Instead of improving its core product, it offers endless discounts, freebies, and perks. At first, it looks generous, but over time, it signals weakness. Customers don't stay because they respect the brand. They stay because it's cheap, and eventually, they leave anyway. The same thing happens in relationships. When you overinvest, you don't build loyalty, you breed entitlement. This is why so many modern relationships fail. Not because men don't try hard enough, but because they try in the wrong way. They overinvest in comfort while underinvesting in authenticity. They forget what built the relationship in the first place. Servants don't inspire attraction. Leaders do. And here's the cruel twist. From the outside, overinvestment looks perfect. Friends say, "Wow, you treat her like a queen." Instagram shows the gifts, the dinners, the vacations. But behind closed doors, the truth is different. He feels drained. She feels smothered. And the respect between them slowly erodes. So ask yourself, are you investing from strength or from fear? Because if it's fear, you're not keeping her, you're losing her. That's the overinvestment trap inside the compliance spiral. And once you're caught, you can't climb out by doing more of the same. You can't buy back attraction. You can't negotiate respect. You can't over-deliver your way into desire. The only way out is to reset the dynamic completely. In the next section, I'll show you how to do exactly that through the authenticity reset. That's the key to regaining respect, reigniting attraction, and breaking free from the spiral before it destroys everything. He's standing in front of the mirror, buttoning up his shirt. For the first time in months, he's not waiting for her to tell him what to do. Tonight, he made the plan. He picked the restaurant. He told her, "Be ready at 7. I've got something lined up." And as small as it sounds, that shift changes everything. That's the beginning of the authenticity reset inside the compliance spiral. The truth is, you don't escape the spiral by giving more. You escape by giving differently. You don't rebuild attraction with gifts, time, or apologies. You rebuild it with leadership, authenticity, and boundaries. The first shift is preference. Stop outsourcing every decision. Instead of asking, "Where do you want to eat?" pick a place and invite her. Instead of waiting for her to plan the weekend, decide and let her join. These simple acts signal confidence. They reignite the alpha male energy that created emotional attraction in the first place. Women don't lose respect when you choose. They lose respect when you stop choosing. The second shift is boundaries. Too many men believe their job is to manage her emotions. It's not. If she's disappointed or frustrated, let her feel it. That doesn't make you cold. It makes you real. A man who never says no doesn't feel safe. A man who can stand firm without losing control does. This is one of the most underrated pieces of relationship advice for men. Stop equating conflict avoidance with strength. The third shift is independence. Keep parts of your life that are yours alone. Your friends, your hobbies, your goals. A man who abandons his world for hers doesn't become more attractive. He becomes replaceable. The fastest way to regain respect in a relationship is to show her that your world still exists and that she's invited into it, not in charge of it. That's the authenticity reset inside the compliance spiral. Preference, boundaries, independence. I once coached a guy named Daniel. By the time he found me, he was deep in the spiral. He hadn't made a single decision in his relationship for months. He was exhausted, drained, and resentful. His girlfriend had lost attraction but couldn't explain why. We started small. He picked the restaurant. He kept his gym schedule. He said no when she tried to cancel his guy's trip. At first, she pushed back. She tested him. But as he held steady, something shifted. Within 3 months, she was more attracted to him than she had been in years. Not because he bought her more things, but because he became himself again. Psychologically, this works because attraction isn't built on comfort. It's built on polarity. Masculine leadership and feminine receptivity. Strength and support. Direction and flow. When you reclaim leadership, you restore that polarity. And polarity is what keeps relationships alive. Think of it like business. A strong company doesn't ask customers for permission on every move. It innovates. It takes risks. It leads the market. Customers follow because they trust the vision. The same applies here. You're not dismissing her input. You're integrating it into your leadership. That's what builds trust. That's what creates long-term loyalty. Servants don't create excitement. Leaders do. And here's the catch. You can't treat this like a phase. The authenticity reset inside the compliance spiral only works if you're consistent. She needs to see that your leadership is reliable, that your boundaries are real, that your independence isn't negotiable. Because the moment she believes your authenticity is permanent, respect returns. And when respect returns, attraction follows. This is why so many modern relationships fail. Not because men don't care, but because they trade their identity for approval. The reset is about reclaiming what should never have been surrendered in the first place. So ask yourself, are you ready to stop managing her emotions and start leading your own life? Because if you are, the spiral breaks. Respect comes back. Desire comes back. And the relationship transforms. That's the power of the authenticity reset inside the compliance spiral. In the conclusion, I'll tie everything together and show you why this reset isn't just about relationships. It's about reclaiming your entire life as a man. The truth is, most relationships don't die from cheating or money problems. They die from the slow erosion of respect inside the compliance spiral. It starts with small concessions, grows into the fear loop, collapses in the overinvestment trap, and can only be broken through the authenticity reset. Because attraction doesn't fade when you argue. It fades when you stop leading. Respect doesn't disappear when you say no. It disappears when you stop choosing at all. Women don't lose interest in men who are strong, decisive, and authentic. They lose interest in men who trade all of that away for approval. If you saw yourself in these patterns, don't ignore it. This isn't just relationship advice for men. It's about reclaiming your identity, your confidence, your direction as a man. When you break the spiral, you don't just save a relationship, you save yourself. The trap is real, but so is the reset. And once you reclaim your authenticity, you don't just keep her attracted, you reclaim your life. Because women don't lose respect for men who lead. They lose respect for men who forget how. And here's the most important takeaway. This isn't just about her. It's about you. The compliance spiral doesn't just kill relationships. It kills men's identities. It robs them of confidence, direction, and pride. Breaking free isn't just relationship advice for men. It's life advice. Because once you reset, you don't just save the relationship, you reclaim your entire life. So if this hit home, don't ignore it. Don't just nod along and go back to the same patterns. Act on it. If you're ready to stop living in hesitation and start leading with authenticity, subscribe right now. Share this with a man who needs to hear it. Because the more men understand this, the fewer relationships will die in silence. The trap is real. The spiral is real. But so is the reset. And if you have the courage to break the compliance spiral, you won't just keep her attracted. You'll keep yourself alive as the man you were always meant to be. Thank you for watching. If this message hit you, don't just scroll away. Subscribe, dive deeper into our content, and start building the mindset that puts you back in control. Drop a comment below. What's the biggest struggle you want us to break down next? Let's build a brotherhood of men who rise above confusion and reclaim their power. See you in the next video.